I remember the day like it was yesterday, the dense fog, the eerie silence, and the feeling of being watched. My buddy Mike and I had been planning this hunting trip for months. We had read tales of the elusive deer that roamed Blackwood Forest, a remote area known for its untouched wilderness, and, as we would soon discover, its dark secrets. Now, don't forget to like and subscribe, or the mysterious old man from the forest might just pop up in the next selfie. We set out early in the morning, our gear packed and our spirits high. The sun barely penetrated the thick canopy of trees as we ventured deeper into the forest. The air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth. It was a hunter's paradise. We trekked for hours, following animal tracks and listening for any sign or movement. As the day wore on, we decided to set up camp near a small clearing by a stream. The water was crystal clear and the area seemed perfect. We pitched our tents and gathered wood for the fire. As dusk approached, the forest seemed to come alive with the sounds of nocturnal creatures. After dinner, we settled in by the fire, sharing stories and enjoying the tranquility of the wilderness. It was around midnight when we first noticed something was off. The forest had gone unevenly quiet. No rustling leaves, no chirping insects, just silence. Mike and I exchanged uneasy glances, but we brushed it off as the result of our overactive imaginations. We decided to call it a night and retreated to our tents. I lay there, staring at the fabric above me, listening to the sound of my own breathing. That's when I heard it, a faint whispering. I sat up, straining to hear. It was indistinct, like a breeze carrying distant voices. I unzipped my tent and stepped outside. The air was cold, and the fire had almost died out. Mike, did you hear that? I said, hoping he was awake. There was no response. I walked over to his tent and unzipped it, but he wasn't inside. Panic started to set in. I grabbed my flashlight and called out his name. Mike, where are you? The beam of my flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing nothing but trees and shadows. My heart pounded in my chest as I ventured further off from our campsite. The whispering grew louder, more insistent. It seemed to come from all directions at once. I stumbled upon a narrow path that wasn't there before. It was lined with old, gnarled trees that seemed to lean in as if trying to listen. The whispering intensified, now a cacophony of voices, some pleading, others angry. I followed the path, compelled by a force I couldn't understand. After what felt like an eternity, I reached a clearing. In the center stood an old, dilapidated cabin, its wooden walls rough and decayed. The door was slightly ajar, creaking as it swayed in the breeze. I felt an overwhelming sense of dread, but knew I had to find Mike. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The air was stale and carried the sense of mildew. My flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls. The whispering was now deafening, surrounding me. I called out for Mike again, my voice trembling. Mike, are you here? Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind me. I spun around, my flashlight beam bouncing wildly. The whispering stopped, replaced by a heavy, oppressive silence. I felt a cold breath on the back of my neck and turned to see a figure standing in the corner of the room. It was Mike. His eyes were wide with terror, his face pale as a ghost. He looked at me, but his expression was vacant, as if he wasn't truly seeing me. I rushed to him, shaking his shoulders. Mike, what's going on? We have to get out of here. He didn't respond. Instead, he lifted his arm and pointed to something behind me. I turned slowly, my heart pounding. There, in the darkness, I saw them, shadowy figures, their forms barely discernible, but their eyes glowed with an unnatural light. They started to move towards us, their whispers filling the room once more. I grabbed Mike's arm and pulled him towards the door. It wouldn't budge. We were trapped. The figures closed in, and the air grew colder. Desperation took over, and I began to pray, hoping for some kind of miracle. Just as the figures were about to reach us, the cabin door burst open, and a blinding light flooded the room. The shadowy figures recoiled, hissing and retreating into the darkness. I felt a hand on my shoulder and turned to see an elderly man, his face weathered but kind. Come with me, quickly, he urged. We followed him out of the cabin and into the forest. The whispering had ceased, replaced by the familiar sound of the night. The man led us back to our campsite, where the fire was miraculously burning bright again. He looked at us with a sullen expression. You shouldn't have come here, he said. This forest is cursed. Many have ventured in, but few have returned. We thanked him and asked who he was, but he only shook his head. Leave now and never come back, he warned. With that, he disappeared into the night. We didn't waste any time packing up our gear and heading back the way we came. The journey out of the forest was a blur, our minds racing with the events of the night. When we finally reached the edge of Blackwood Forest, we breathed a sigh of relief. Mike and I never spoke of what happened that night. We never returned to Blackwood Forest, and we warned everyone who would listen to stay away. The haunting whispers, the shadowy figures, and the mysterious old man stayed with us, a chilling reminder of the unknown terrors that lurk in the darkness. To this day, I can't explain what happened, but I know one thing for certain. We weren't alone in Blackwood Forest, and whatever was there, it wanted to claim us as its own. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below.
And remember, you can always reach me on real at gameacademics.vip. Thank you, everybody, and good night.